The Ghost of Art. By Charles Dickens. I am a bachelor, residing in rather a dreary set of chambers in the Temple. They are situated in a square court of high houses, which would be a complete well, but for the want of water and the absence of a bucket. I live at the top of the house, among the tiles and sparrows. Like the little man in the nursery story, I live by myself, and all the bread and cheese I get, which is not much, I put upon a shelf. I need scarcely add, perhaps, that I am in love, and that the father of my charming Julia objects to our union. I mention these little particulars as I might deliver a letter of introduction. The reader is now acquainted with me, and perhaps will condescend to listen to my narrative. I am naturally of a dreamy turn of mind, and my abundant leisure, for I am called to the bar, coupled with much lonely listening to the twittering of sparrows, and the pattering of rain, has encouraged that disposition. In my top set I hear the wind howl on a winter night, when the man on the ground floor believes it is perfectly still weather. The dim lamps with which our honourable society, supposed to be as yet unconscious of the new discovery called gas, make the horrors of the staircase visible, deepen the gloom which generally settles on my soul when I go home at night. I am in the law, but not of it. I can't exactly make out what it means. I sit in Westminster Hall sometimes, in character, from 10 to 4, and when I go out of court, I don't know whether I am standing on my wig or my boots. It appears to me, I mention this in confidence, as if there were too much talk and too much law, as if some grains of truth were started overboard into a tempestuous sea of chaff. All this may make me mystical. Still, I am confident that what I am going to describe myself as having seen and heard, I actually did see and hear. It is necessary that I should observe that I have a great delight in pictures. I am no painter myself, but I have studied pictures and written about them. I have seen all the most famous pictures in the world. My education and reading have been sufficiently general to possess me beforehand with a knowledge of most of the subjects to which a painter is likely to have recourse, and, although I might be in some doubt as to the rightful fashion of the scabbard of King Lear's sword, for instance, I think I should know King Lear tolerably well, if I happened to meet with him. I go to all the modern exhibitions every season, and of course I revere the Royal Academy. I stand by its 40 academical articles almost as firmly as I stand by the 39 articles of the Church of England. I am convinced that in neither case could there be, by any rightful possibility, one article more or less. It is now exactly 3 years ago, this very month, since I went from Westminster to the Temple, one Thursday afternoon, in a cheap steamboat. The sky was black, when I imprudently walked on board. It began to thunder and lighten immediately afterwards, and the rain poured down in torrents. The deck seeming to smoke with the wet, I went below, but so many passengers were there, smoking too, that I came up again, and buttoning my peacoat, and standing in the shadow of the paddle box, stood as upright as I could, and made the best of it. It was at this moment that I first beheld the terrible being, who is the subject of my present recollections. Standing against the funnel, apparently with the intention of drying himself by the heat as fast as he got wet, was a shabby man in threadbare black, and with his hands in his pockets, who fascinated me from the memorable instant when I caught his eye. Where had I caught that eye before? Who was he? Why did I connect him, all at once, with the Vicar of Wakefield, Alfred the Great, Gil Blas, Charles II, Joseph and his brethren, the Fairy Queen, Tom Jones, the Decameron of Boccaccio, Tam O'Shanter, the marriage of the Doge of Venice with the Adriatic, and the Great Plague of London? Why, when he bent one leg, and placed one hand upon the back of the seat near him, did my mind associate him wildly with the words, number 142, Portrait of a Gentleman. Could it be that I was going mad? I looked at him again, and now I could have taken my affidavit that he belonged to the Vicar of Wakefield's family. Whether he was the vicar, or Moses, or Mr. Burkill, or the squire, or a conglomeration of all four, I knew not, but I was impelled to seize him by the throat, and charge him with being, in some fell way, connected with the Primrose blood. He looked up at the rain, and then, oh heaven! He became St. John. He folded his arms, resigning himself to the weather, and I was frantically inclined to address him as the Spectator, and firmly demand to know what he had done with Sir Roger de Coverley. The frightful suspicion that I was becoming deranged, returned upon me with redoubled force. Meantime, this awful stranger, inexplicably linked to my distress, stood drying himself at the funnel, and ever, as the steam rose from his clothes, diffusing a mist around him, I saw through the ghostly medium all the people I have mentioned, and a score more, sacred and profane. I am conscious of a dreadful inclination that stole upon me, as it thundered and lightened, to grapple with this man or demon and plunge him over the side. But, I constrained myself, I know not how, to speak to him, and in a pause of the storm, I crossed the deck, and said, "What are you?" He replied, hoarsely, "A model." "A what?" said I. "A model," he replied. "I sets to the profession for a bob a hour." All through this narrative I give his own words, which are indelibly imprinted on my memory. The relief which this disclosure gave me, the exquisite delight of the restoration of my confidence in my own sanity, I cannot describe. I should have fallen on his neck, but for the consciousness of being observed by the man at the wheel. You then, said I, shaking him so warmly by the hand, that I wrung the rain out of his coat cuff, are the gentleman whom I have so frequently contemplated, in connection with a high-backed chair with a red cushion, and a table with twisted legs. I am that model, he rejoined moodily, and I wish I was anything else. Say not so, I returned. I have seen you in the society of many beautiful young women, as in truth I had, and always, I now remember, in the act of making the most of his legs. No doubt, said he. And you've seen me along with vases of flowers, and any number of table covers, and antique cabinets, and various gammon. Sir, said I. And various gammon, he repeated, in a louder voice. You might have seen me in armour, too, if you had looked sharp. Blessed if I hadn't stood in half the suits of armour as ever came out of Pratt's shop, and sat, for weeks together, eating nothing, out of half the gold and silver dishes as has ever been lent for the purpose out of Stores's and Mortimer's or Garrett's, and Davenport's. Excited, as it appeared, by a sense of injury, I thought he would never have found an end for the last word. But, at length it rolled sullenly away with the thunder. Pardon me, said I, you are a well-favoured, well-made man, and yet, forgive me, I find, on examining my mind, that I associate you with, that my recollection indistinctly makes you, in short, excuse me, a kind of powerful monster. It would be a wonder if it didn't, he said. Do you know what my points are? No, said I. My throat and my legs, said he. When I don't set for a head, I mostly sets for a throat and a pair of legs. Now, granted you was a painter, and was to work at my throat for a week together, I suppose you'd see a lot of lumps and bumps there, that would never be there at all, if you looked at me, complete, instead of only my throat. Wouldn't you? Probably, said I, surveying him. Why, it stands to reason, said the model. Work another week at my legs, and it'll be the same thing. You'll make 'em out as naughty and as knobby, at last, as if they was the trunks of 2 old trees. Then, take and stick my legs and throat onto another man's body, and you'll make a reg'lar monster. And that's the way the public gets their reg'lar monsters, every first Monday in May, when the Royal Academy exhibition opens. You are a critic, said I, with an air of deference. I'm in an uncommon ill humour, if that's it, rejoined the model, with great indignation. As if it warn't bad enough for a bob a hour, for a man to be mixing himself up with that there jolly old finitair that one you'd think the public know'd the wery nails in by this time, or to be putting on greasy old ats and cloaks, and playing tambourines in the Bay o' Naples, with Vesuvius a-smokin' according to pattern in the background, and the wines a-bearing wonderful in the middle distance, or to be unpolitely kicking up his legs among a lot o' gals, with no reason whatever in his mind. But to show 'em, as if this warn't bad enough, I'm to go and be thrown out of employment too. Surely no, said I. Surely yes, said the indignant model. But I'll grow one. The gloomy and threatening manner in which he muttered the last words, can never be effaced from my remembrance. My blood ran cold. I asked of myself, what was it that this desperate being was resolved to grow? My breast made no response. I ventured to implore him to explain his meaning. With a scornful laugh, he uttered this dark prophecy. I'll grow one. And, mark my words, it shall haunt you. We parted in the storm, after I had forced half a crown on his acceptance, with a trembling hand. I conclude that something supernatural happened to the steamboat, as it bore his reeking figure down the river, but it never got into the papers. 2 years elapsed, during which I followed my profession without any vicissitudes, never holding so much as a motion, of course. At the expiration of that period, I found myself making my way home to the Temple, one night, in precisely such another storm of thunder and lightning as that by which I had been overtaken on board the steamboat, except that this storm, bursting over the town at midnight, was rendered much more awful by the darkness and the hour. As I turned into my court, I really thought a thunderbolt would fall, and plough the pavement up. Every brick and stone in the place seemed to have an echo of its own for the thunder. The waterspouts were overcharged, and the rain came tearing down from the housetops as if they had been mountain tops. Mrs. Parkins, my laundress, wife of Parkins the porter, then newly dead of a dropsy, had particular instructions to place a bedroom candle and a match under the staircase lamp on my landing, in order that I might light my candle there, whenever I came home. Mrs. Parkins invariably disregarding all instructions, they were never there. Thus it happened that on this occasion I groped my way into my sitting room to find the candle, and came out to light it. What were my emotions when, underneath the staircase lamp, shining with wet as if he had never been dry since our last meeting, stood the mysterious being whom I had encountered on the steamboat in a thunderstorm, 2 years before. His prediction rushed upon my mind, and I turned faint. I said I'd do it, he observed, in a hollow voice, and I have done it. May I come in? Misguided creature, what have you done? I returned. I'll let you know, was his reply, if you'll let me in. Could it be murder that he had done? And had he been so successful that he wanted to do it again, at my expense? I hesitated. "May I come in?" said he. I inclined my head, with as much presence of mind as I could command, and he followed me into my chambers. There, I saw that the lower part of his face was tied up, in what is commonly called a belcher handkerchief. He slowly removed this bandage, and exposed to view a long dark beard, curling over his upper lip, twisting about the corners of his mouth, and hanging down upon his breast. "What is this?" I exclaimed involuntarily, "and what have you become?" "I am the ghost of art," said he. The effect of these words, slowly uttered in the thunderstorm at midnight, was appalling in the last degree. More dead than alive, I surveyed him in silence. "The German taste came up," said he, "and threw me out of bread. I am ready for the taste now." He made his beard a little jagged with his hands, folded his arms, and said, "Severity." I shuddered. It was so severe. He made his beard flowing on his breast, and, leaning both hands on the staff of a carpet broom which Mrs. Parkins had left among my books, said, "Benevolence." I stood transfixed. The change of sentiment was entirely in the beard. The man might have left his face alone, or had no face. The beard did everything. He lay down, on his back, on my table, and with that action of his head threw up his beard at the chin. "That's death," said he. He got off my table and, looking up at the ceiling, cocked his beard a little awry, at the same time making it stick out before him. "Adoration, or a vow of vengeance," he observed. He turned his profile to me, making his upper lip very bulky with the upper part of his beard. "Romantic character," said he. He looked sideways out of his beard, as if it were an ivy bush. "Jealousy," said he. He gave it an ingenious twist in the air, and informed me that he was carousing. He made it shaggy with his fingers, and it was despair, lank, and it was avarice, tossed it all kinds of ways, and it was rage. The beard did everything. "I am the ghost of art," said he. 2 bob a day now, and more when it's longer. Here's the true expression. There is no other. I said I'd grow it, and I've grown it, and it shall haunt you. He may have tumbled downstairs in the dark, but he never walked down or ran down. I looked over the banisters, and I was alone with the thunder. Need I add more of my terrific fate? It has haunted me ever since. It glares upon me from the walls of the Royal Academy, except when Mackless subdues it to his genius. It fills my soul with terror at the British institution. It lures young artists on to their destruction. Go where I will, the ghost of art, eternally working the passions in hair, and expressing everything by beard, pursues me. The prediction is accomplished, and the victim has no rest.